From the world headquarters of Fox News, it's The Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
Tonight, as new attacks are leveled against Indiana over its new religious freedom law, Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, becomes the second Democratic governor to ban all non-essential travel to Indiana, state workers. It comes on the same day that the Indiana governor, Mike Pence, actually pledged to modify the law. Watch.
Let me say I believe this is a clarification, but it's also a fix. It's a fix of a bill that, through mischaracterization and confusion, has come to be greatly misunderstood. And I'm determined to address this week. Was I expecting this kind of backlash? Heavens, no.
Tony Perkins is president of the Family Research Council. Tony, you were here last night defending the law, and now that you've heard that the governor is prepared to modify it, a law you thought was fine as it was standing, what say you? Because Todd Starnes, who's been, very outspoken, he's here at Fox News on religious freedom, said he believes that that Governor Pence threw the people of faith under the bus today.
Well, I certainly hear the engine roaring. I wouldn't say we've been thrown on the bus just yet. I mean, what the governor did today, and Mike's been a long-time friend of mine, but what he did is I think he emboldened his enemies and he enraged his friends. And there are people that are deeply concerned about the growing intolerance towards religious freedom in this country, and they were very disappointed. There's no question about it. However, this language, this fix, we've not seen it yet, and there's still an opportunity, I think, to salvage the heart and soul of what this Religious Freedom Restoration Act was intended to do.
The question is what that was, because even though Governor Pence, for some reason, will not get specific about whether this law would specifically, in any case, allow a florist, for example, objecting to a gay wedding to decline to participate in a gay wedding, let's just assume, for purposes of this hypothetical, that discrimination against gays is illegal in Indiana, which it's not, by the way.
Right.
But if it were, do you believe that this law would then protect the religious objector?
Not necessarily. It could be a defense to, say someone like Barronella Stutzman, a grandmother, who, under a threat of law in another state, in Washington State, is not only going to lose her business, but maybe her house because she refused not to sell flowers to gay men or lesbian women, but she didn't want to participate in arranging the flowers within a wedding because she sees that as a religious ceremony. So there's got to be space in our culture for people who have religious objections, and that's all that's being asked for under this RFRA, which has been in place for over 20 years, to give people of faith space, not to force them.
But respond to this, because what gay and lesbian rights activists say is that they want to know whether religious liberty can be allowed to destroy the civil liberties of gays and lesbians.
Well, how can someone coming in and saying, hey, I want you to photograph my wedding, my same-sex wedding, and that photographer saying, no, I really don't want to do that. What we're talking about here is forcing someone to engage in something that violates their beliefs and their faith. It's
okay,
not
but let me stop you there. Let me stop you there and
away.
ask you that.
Okay.
Because the other analogy they use is, okay, back in this country it used to be illegal for blacks and whites to marry. And many justified that on religious grounds. In fact, that wound up in some court opinions saying God didn't want it to happen. And so if we had allowed the religious objections to stand in those cases, to this day, an interracial couple could go into a florist and be denied the flower services because one is black and one is white.
Well, I think, first off, I think it would be much more difficult to try to base a religious view on Scripture on the issue of racism or a racial separation. Here we have a very clear issue of marriage, which is from the beginning of the Bible all the way to the end, in Genesis to Revelation. Talks about man and woman. Jesus himself, for those that just don't want to hear the words of Jesus, affirms what marriage is, the union of a man and a woman. And so there is the five-step test, which you're very familiar with as a lawyer, is only offers a defense. It's not ironclad.
Right. It gives those asserting a religious objection the opportunity to be heard. But I just want the viewers to understand.
I
want the viewers to understand this, that This law does not allow discrimination against gays.
No.
That is already
right.
legal in the state of Indiana. Until a state like Indiana, it is, Tony. It is.
But how
Until
often
a
does it
state
happen?
recognizes gays and lesbians as a protected class and passes an anti-discrimination law against them, they can be fired for any reason. They cannot be served for any reason. Just like if somebody doesn't want to do my wedding because they don't like blonde hair, totally legal. If they don't want to do my wedding because I'm over 40, yes, it's true, then that's not necessarily okay. Depending on whether it's the state or it's private.
But Megan, it's not happening. And so it's not going to happen under the RFRA.
But other people say that's the whole point of the RFRA.
No, but it's not. It's the ability. I mean, in most of the cases where it's been applied, it's to Native Americans, Sikhs, and others. But there's got to be space in our culture for Christians to be able to exercise their faith. I mean, Al Gore, back in 1993, when it was signed, he said the Religious Freedom Restoration Act is something all Americans can embrace. What's changed? Well, I tell you, the policies that's being pushed by this administration has created hostility toward religious exercise. And there are those that want to quarantine faith within the four walls of the church. And that's wrong. They want to eradicate any practice of faith outside the walls of a church, and that's not what America's about.
Last question. Governor Cuomo not allowing any state visits. Meanwhile, he's going to Cuba on official business, which,
Look, the lunacy
gay
of the
marriage
left
is totally
here.
illegal there. So, Governor Cuomo, heal thyself.
I mean, you see the governor of Connecticut railing against Indiana, and they have a stronger RFRA over there. I guess they're going to ban people from even commuting. I mean, the left this is what's happened here, Megan, is the curtain has been pulled back on the lunacy of the left, and we see what really, that they're incoherent in what they're trying to apply in America. But the sad thing about this, Megan, is that this is the fundamental first freedom of religion that everything else hinges on. And fortunately, we saw in Arkansas they actually passed it tonight. The governor's going to sign it down there. But the concern is what happens when the court redefines marriage, if they redefine marriage. I think we're going to see this breaking out all over the country. That's why you see these states moving to adopt RFRAs to protect religious expression. Yeah. We've got to have room for that in America if we're going to be a free society.
I see the argument, but I also think that gay rights activists have a bigger fight to fight before they take on the RFRA as outlined in the previous 3 minutes. Tony, it's always great to see you.
Thanks, Megan.
We're taking your thoughts on it. Facebook.com/The Kelly File and on Twitter @Megyn Kelly.